Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geeky Geezers. I am your host, Aged Boomer. This is my co-host, PaPa Pacelli.
Yeah, hello. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
I'm doing well too, and at this point, I would say that at our age, looking at the news, every day above ground is a blessing.
Oh, I'm still a young guy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the older we get, the younger the old people look.
When I'm looking fondly back on the 90s, that's an issue.
Somebody had going around on the Twitter tweets. I guess there's some pictures that Polina Porniskova put out of herself, and something like she dares to show her real age. And I'm looking, and I really had to look to see that these were current pictures of her and not pictures from like the late 80s, early 90s. You know, the woman's just, let's face it, gorgeous. But I'm guessing that maybe some younger people look at these pictures differently. I don't know. You know, because, wow. You know? That's all I can say.
She didn't like shave half her hair off and color the rest blue.
Yeah.
I'm
exactly.
sorry. Let's be nice. Let's say hi to the chat, huh?
Hello to the chat.
Joshua V. Let me see. Turning Red is now going to be on Disney Plus. I fear the Buzz Lightyear movie will suffer the same fate. Oh, that's that Pixar movie. Yeah, they're bringing that straight. They don't like Pixar over there.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll tell you something else. The marketing fell down on this, just like it has on just about everything else they've been doing over there. But I think there's some real problems with the title. Turning red means something very different in the current age.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that a lot of people are pretty sensitive about that too. Not that I have any indication that there's anything about this film that has anything to do with any of the political ramifications that would be indicated by the title Turning Red. I'm just saying, you know, probably not the best choice of title, you know.
Probably not. Go Team Ghost Planet, go ×2. Bob Saget passed away. Yeah, I just read about that in this actual chat before the stream started.
I just heard about it as I was watching Viva Barnes, and someone super chatted about it. And he's like, get out of here, you're trolling me. Bob Saget didn't die, blah, blah, blah. I know when you guys are trolling me, you guys tried doing that with this other person and this other person. And so I didn't believe it when somebody said that Betty White had passed away. And then Nanette and I both looked, and it was like, wow, he really did just pass away today.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't trolling on that one.
No, they were not. And I guess it's the people always say deaths come in threes, and I guess this concludes it.
Yeah, but now they're coming in 3 sets of 3s. I mean, they're coming fast. Yeah, they're coming fast now. I mean, where do you draw the line for 3s when there's coming, you know, multiple 3s in a week? You know, it's getting bad.
Great Sidney Poitier died too.
Yep. And this was what I was referencing to. You're getting all these deaths coming out, and they're saying cause of death not immediately disclosed. I wonder why. Because normally when someone that's older passes, you just say, well, they died of natural causes. They died from, you know, heart attack, whatever. This is not a big surprise for someone who's of a certain age. I don't think there's anybody questioning anything about Betty White. In fact, there's been speculation that because of who was around her when she died, they were expecting it. It was not unexpected or whatever. But some of these unexpected ones, let's just say it raises some questions.
I guess, well, we'll see if these keep coming. Hopefully they don't. But Rosefire, shalom and good evening to you as well. I saw the Turning Red trailer. Somehow was underwhelmed. Magic Mythology angle looks interesting, but not at all special the way Coco and Luca sparked my interest. Interesting. Zootopia, hi Netter, and hello Zootopia.
Yep.
So I was thinking though, since Bob Saget was the celebrity death, do you want to talk a little bit about Full House?
Oh gosh,
memories of Full House. Remember that?
So back in the what was it? Back in the 80s, was it?
It was the 80s, late 80s. I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Bob Saget. Okay, so and a lot of people draw the comparison between Full House and Three Men and a Baby, because that's basically, in a lot of ways, what it was. It was three single guys, raising a house of kids, right? And you have a divorced father played by Bob Saget.
No, not divorced. He was a widower.
Sorry,
Wife
widower.
Died, yes.
That's right, because if they had been divorced, that would have added an element of story that they could have brought into it. Actually, I think I remember reading somewhere that they had a different plan going into the pilot, and they'd actually cast the mother.
I see. So they were going to do a divorce, but then
they decided not to, and it was partly because of the casting. I think the woman who was, and this is a fuzzy memory, so I may be getting this all wrong. Don't just take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Just pretend it's a rumor. But I seem to remember that they had cast the wife. They were going to have it be a divorce. She may have been a recurring character or whatever. But then when she committed to something else and wasn't going to be able to do it, they said, you know what? Let's just make him a widower, and because he was not prepared to deal with, 3 kids, he had his
3 daughters, and an infant one too.
Yeah, it was his brother and his brother's college roommate or something moved in with them.
I think cousin. They called him his cousin, maybe his brother. I don't know. It was cousin Jesse. I think they called him, but part of me wants.
No, it was Uncle Jesse. It was Uncle Jesse.
No, never mind.
But now I'm not remembering if it was the father's brother or his brother-in-law.
Wife's brother-in-law.
Was it?
That's who it was. Yes.
Okay.
If only Wolfton was here to chide us.
And then one of their college roommates or something like that, who was the comedian.
Dave. Yeah. No, it was
Dave Coulier.
Yeah. It was.
Cut it out. Yeah, I remember.
Danny Tanner, and I remember Dave Coulier from a Nickelodeon show when I was growing up called Out of Control.
Yes, I remember that too.
Mm-hmm. And I used to watch that.
And so that's where I picked up the whole cut it out thing, because he had the freedom on that show to kind of improv and stuff like that. But that comes from his old stand-up routine. Yeah. But
John Stamos played Uncle Jesse, and him and Dave Coulier were exact opposites.
Yeah.
Characters. Like he was Mr. Cool Guy, rock and roll, good with the flirting with the ladies, and Dave Coulier was kind of a goof,
And what was really funny was that Bob Saget's character, speaking of opposites, the character was very opposite of who he was in real life, because he was a little bawdy, a little playful and whatnot. He played a little bit more stodgy father type in the show. Mm-hmm.
Whereas a stand-up, I heard, was rather scandalous.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Don't know too much about that because I never actually saw any of his stand-up. I saw a lot of Dave Coulier's, and of course, what was Uncle Joey's name? John Stamos. John Stamos was an actor, but more a musician.
Joey was the other guy. Joey was the
Jesse. Yeah, Uncle Jesse. Uncle Jesse. He was. Wasn't he drummer for the Beach Boys for a while?
He might have been.
I think so.
I remember they had the Beach Boys guest star in an episode. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. I believe that was John Stamos, who was the drummer in the video for Kokomo, because he actually was playing with them on the album for Kokomo. Cool. But Bob Saget. In fact, I did not see the follow-up show that they had the past couple of years. Fuller House?
I didn't want to watch it. Did anybody in the chat see it? Was it of the same quality or worse, or depending?
I mean,
it's a Netflix original. I mean, they got all the actors back. Cameron was back. And,
they did. The only ones that they didn't get back was that neither of the Olsen twins wanted to do it, and they kind of got lampooned a little bit on the show, kind of in a kind of meta sort of way. But
couldn't they have just recast Michelle though with a different actress?
I think that a lot of these shows are trying to get away from that, because they used to do that with reunion shows. Like if you think about all the Brady reunions, and they would either recast Jan or they'd recast Marsha or Cindy at various times, and they just stuck out like a sore thumb. It's like, you'd have been better off just saying she couldn't come in because, of work or her husband was traveling or something, just, I don't know. But, and that's what they decided to do here. They just, they did things where they would have a phone call with her or something and you just never saw her. And
it's a pity because they could have had the Olsen twins. It could have been like an evil doppelganger shows up pretending to be their sister, right?
Right. Well, there had even been talk about because she, well, and here's the other thing too: the Olsen twins aren't acting anymore; they're literally out of acting. Right. But they went to the younger sister and asked if she'd be interested, and she's like, "No, that was my sister's thing. I don't want to, get in the middle of that or whatever." Okay. Yeah. And I don't think they were ever really serious about it either. They just were like, well, do you wanna? But yeah, no, I think he was actually in it too. I mean, because I'm looking at a publicity shot of them, the two main girls and Bob Saget. They appeared at something recently, so I don't know, maybe.
That was part of a whole Friday night block, remember?
Yeah, it
Thank
was.
Goodness It's Funny, TGIF. That was the whole... It was like Family Time, I remember.
Didn't they have that up, like that one and the show with the Urkel?
Yeah, Family Matters. And I often wondered on Family Matters, not that we want to get off on a tangent with that, but I often felt the dad, Winslow, who played a cop, I kept thinking, is this the same police officer from Die Hard? Same actor. I often pretended it was.
I think so. Not the same character, but the same actor. Yes.
I know same actor, but I kept pretending it was
but because they were
after Die Hard.
Because both characters were police officers, and the one in the first Die Hard movie, didn't he say he was originally from Chicago? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like too coincidental. It's like, maybe he changed his name because he. Had a bad case or something in Chicago, but I'll bet you, yeah. No, I see that headcanon works for me. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Saget was...
He goes from did I do this to yippee-ki-yay, mother...
Oh, funny. Did I do that? I remember that. Yeah, there was always the catchphrase. I think Michelle's on Full House was, "You got it, dude." That was you wait for the line.
Exactly.
That was
how rude.
How rude.
Actually, she had a lot of them because as such a little kid, everything she said was cute. Yeah. But yeah, Full House, Bob Saget. Did you ever watch America's Funniest Home Videos? I know he was on that. I did. I liked that one too. Although that was the gateway for network television to start getting into so-called reality television. And I don't like where it led to. But back then I did enjoy it. Yeah, think about it. That's where it all started. And when networks started realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's a writer's strike, but that doesn't affect... America's Funniest Home Videos. Okay, fine. Let's just keep doing more of this stuff. And, there's less production value on these shows. People just send stuff in. Okay, let's do more of that. We get real people and film them acting like buffoons. Okay, sure. Let's do more of that. And that's kind of how things, went the way they did.
Yeah. Apparently Urkel had a Full House cameo. I didn't realize that. I know he had a cameo on the other show that had Suzanne Summers on it and Patrick
Three's
Duffy.
Company?
No.
Oh, no. With Patrick Duffy, you're right. They were like married in a blended family or something like that?
Blended family because they both had kids and then they got married and it was all about how the siblings would not get along with each other because they were from the different backgrounds.
Yeah, well, let's just be thankful that they did it back then because if they tried to do a reboot of that show, you'd be trying to keep the kids from... badoop-badooping, at night.
Yeah, anyways.
Well, I mean, you think back to that parody Brady Bunch movie that they did, right?
Where
Marsha...
really brother and sister? And
Marsha and Greg are sharing the upstairs apartment, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, we're not really brother and sister.
That's funny.
And then his voice drops.
But yeah, TGIF, thank goodness it's funny. Do we miss those old sitcom nights? Do they have sitcoms
I miss
anymore?
good sitcoms. Yeah, I mean, nothing's funny anymore because you're not allowed to be funny anymore. You got to be, unoffensive. You can't offend anybody. Anyone comes out and says they're offended by you, you have to come out and apologize.
Oh, we're gonna get to that later.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, but I'm sad Bob Saget left us too soon. Really? How old was he?
Oh, good question.
I don't know. I should look that up. But
let's see.
not to gloss over the great Sidney.
65. 65. Which honestly is not old these days.
No.
I mean, 65 is. God bless you, Nutter.
Thank you.
That's just. I don't know.
I don't know. It's sad. I mean, look at Sidney Poitier. How old was he? He's born 1927. So.
Yeah. But 65. I don't know that he had any chemical problems or dependencies. I suppose it's possible, but right now they're saying cause of death undisclosed, so we'll have to wait and find out.
Troy Pacelli, in regards to America's Funniest Home Video setting, the foundation to modern reality TV, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Well, I think good intentions, you're being very generous there, Auditor Dredd. I think good intentions for the networks, not necessarily good intentions for good product. But I get what you're saying, yeah.
Rosefire, I'm intrigued by tonight's topics as one of the headlines some of our lightsabers are missing. Did I make a typo? I probably did. You'll see. It has to do with a problem going on in one of the parks, a certain place called Galaxy's Edge, but we'll get to that in a minute. I have an update or addendum to talk about from last week. Because we didn't really have a lot of time to talk.
Should we give him a little peek behind the curtain on this too?
Now, I know y'all think, and I'm going to say, I think it's actually good that you and I don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
If we did, we'd come off as disingenuous.
In fairness, we do think a lot alike, so we do agree on a lot.
Most of the time. But there was one issue last week. And to be fair, Troy didn't have time to properly get vetted on the subject. I did feel a little bad about that because he probably would have had a different reaction live than he did if
Possibly.
he had time to read it. So that stream is now up, though, if you want to listen to it last week. But our opinions on it have changed a little bit. So the big story last week that broke that Sunday, and I didn't even want to talk about it because we were doing the best and the worst of 2021 and predictions for 2022, but I had to comment on it because everybody was talking about it. And my original thought was this was the big story, was that a comic book from 6 months ago, Superman Red and Blue, featured the Man of Steel getting kidnapped in some kind of Eastern European country. And they used kryptonite gas on him, I think, or some kind of compound to make him normal strength. And then they tortured him. And then the big headline, at least in our side of in our community, was that he was perhaps sexually violated. If I'm using that term.
Sure.
And I read the issues and I said, and I didn't see anything to point to that. I still thought at the time that any comic book featuring Superman getting tortured and humiliated, that's bad enough. But a lot more reactions came out this week. A lot of people on our side were upset. And I think last week I said something that I would like to take back now. I thought it was a troll trolling the community, trying to get us riled up. But I actually don't think that's the case. I think people actually did genuinely find out about it and were genuinely upset. I listened to Doomcock's video this week, and he was viscerally angry, as I was when I initially heard it.
Yeah.
But my initial take on it, though, and it still is, though I could be in denial because the allegation is so horrible that I just want to pretend that it was nothing more than torture, was that he was also sexually violated in this comic. But, Troy, you also had your own thoughts.
Well, yeah, so, and I appreciate you pointing out that you're right. I didn't know much about it at all until just before the show. So I literally only read the single-page splash that most people are referring to. And so I could kind of see your perspective on it. There's nothing overt saying it. It might be implied, but just taking at that, I was willing to let it go. But again, you taking the whole story in context, some stuff that happens after those panels, things that the character says, I think, what is the intent here? There's what is said and what is clearly implied, right? Now, I think that there's, and this was the analogy I made in the green room just before the show. I said, we often talk about death of the author, right? And people are ripping on J.K. Rowling when she says Dumbledore was a gay character and she always envisioned him that way. Well, in all 7 of your books, there is not even the barest minimum of a hint there. You don't get to come back and say he was gay when you never indicated that overtly or, indirectly or subtextually or nothing. It's just not there. However, the opposite is true too. When the author clearly puts things there for no other reason to imply something, and you willfully ignore it and go, well, they didn't actually outright say it, I mean,
but what you're saying, what's implied? Auditor Dread actually brings up a good point in the chat. He's saying if it was Supergirl in the same situation, the other side would be having pitchforks ready. Think about
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And I think rightly so. Again, I don't think that an author would overtly I'm trying to figure out how to say
would
this.
Overtly
YouTube friendly.
state it in the comic. You think he was trying to sneak?
You would not, would not use the R word.
You
okay.
think he was trying to sneak something by the editor? Is that what happened here? I mean, we don't know.
I don't think even the editor is the problem right now. I think they just want to. I think they know these kinds of conversations are going to have, and they want to be able to appeal to some plausible deniability. And I'm arguing, and I'm not making this a personal thing. I think we've, talked this through over the past week. I don't think you have taken it personally, but I do feel that people who share your particular perspective do give them that cover and allow them to get away with stuff like this.
I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to think, part of me just doesn't want to think as bad as DC is that they're not this awful. And,
I am just going to point to a lot of things going on in this world that people have lived in denial about, and they have looked at people like me who try to speak out about it and say how evil I am for drawing these comparisons. And as these comparisons get more and more obvious, well, now it's too late. And on a microcosm, I know comic book stories don't matter quite as much, but they do shape our culture. And I think you need to be as critical with them and as critical with your view of them as needs to be. And I think that this author, not only did he intend it, he laughs at people who say that's not what was intended. He's sitting there laughing that there's anyone who doesn't get it.
I've noticed, too, that the other side has been very quiet about this. I've heard no one from DC come out and talk about this. No one from maybe the more progressive-leaning side of fandom, quote-unquote. I've not heard them talk about this at all this week. I was
that's got a whole other aspect to it that we'll probably get into in one of our later stories. But there is... I said this last week with my prediction about Warner Brothers, that there's going to be a lot of shaking up as Discovery comes in and starts cleaning house. I think there's a lot of people really concerned about their jobs right now, and no one wants to go out on a limb like this. This was actually quite foolish. Anything that's going to cause more loss of revenue and bad press for DC is not a good thing as Discovery comes in and starts deciding.
It feels like brand burning. And I'm just...
There's no doubt about it. They're setting the house on fire as they leave, is what they're doing. But it's... I would even argue it's even bigger than that. When you look at all of our favorite franchises being burned to the ground, that's really what it is. It's cultural vandals literally trying to destroy the pillars of our communities. They are trying to bring about a new culture. They're trying to bring about the revolution. And this is how they do it. Honestly, people, learn your history. It's happening again, and you're ignoring it.
Auditor Dread says a couple of ex-DC pros like Shane Davis said this would never have flown with DC editorial 5-6 years ago due to
Yep.
the perception optics of the panel in that regard. Maybe I'm just 5 or 6 years behind because this I just don't get it. I don't get it. I feel like I woke up and I'm living in an insane asylum some days. But,
Well, I would say, I'm sorry, Art Dread. I can't speak to 5-6 years ago. I'd kind of dropped away from comics by that time. But I can say 15, 20 years ago, not only would this not have flown, but if it had gotten through, like Boomer had suggested, it gets by the editor because, it was a little bit ambiguous. What's up?
Yeah.
My comment.
So they're pulling the... I better not read that out loud. And taking the W off the keyboards. Yeah, kind of. But on an even worse scale. They're not just taking the W's off. They are smashing the computers and throwing them in the bin and lighting them on fire. But yeah, I would say 20 years ago, if they did this and it made it to print and it caused this kind of an uproar, you better believe someone like Julius Schwartz would have gone, okay, you're off of this book.
Let's see here, though. Did you hear about the Vixen thing with the giraffe? I don't want to know.
Vixen? The giraffe?
I don't want to know.
My mind just immediately goes to really, really bad places now. I don't even know.
Okay. Rosefire, my excuse to read manga and 40s Pulp Fiction gets more and more justified every day. DC doesn't, they don't understand they have competition. They're I don't know. But let's move on to the news, shall we? Unless you have anything left to say. You there?
Oh my gosh, I should not have looked this up.
Okay.
It's worse than I thought. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Yep.
Okay, well, that'll be next week's maybe non-story that we won't talk about.
I think it's better that we just leave this alone. Let's put it this way. This is right up there with the Superman thing, except there's no question. There's no ambiguity, and it's well, let's face it. Remember, everyone in the DC Comics, it used to be, oh, this character's gay? Oh, that character's gay? Now, wait, there's a character that isn't gay? That's the big surprise, right?
Right. Okay.
So,
all right.
We'll start there and then start bringing animal powers into it, and it gets really, really nasty.
Oh, no. This is a beloved character. I mean, this is a black female superhero in the DC universe that actually does have a rather bigger following than probably the execs at these companies realize, and I don't know what they're doing to her. Let's move on to the news, indeed. Yes. Okay. Sam, here we go. Lightsabers. We like lightsabers, don't we? Actually, never.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, not all lightsabers are made equal, but.
Oh no. Okay. Let's talk about Disney. We love Disney.
A little more dismal Disney, huh?
Savvy's Workshop custom lightsabers no longer include complimentary sleeve. Guests told to purchase for $50 or use plastic bag. I have to feel bad for some of the people working at these parks when they have to deliver this information. There's a lot of plastic lightsabers being carried around in plastic bags today at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Instead of being given a carrying sleeve for their lightsaber at the end of the Savvy's Workshop custom lightsaber building experience, guests are given a plastic bag. Change, we're told, is due to supply issues, but guests that we spoke with and overheard yelling are clearly not happy. It is reportedly not communicated to guests that they will not be given a carrying sleeve either before the experience at check-in or at the end of the experience. Cast members are simply staying silent. Silent, that is, unless guests ask for a sleeve. At that point, cast members either provide a clear plastic bag, so they're not just going to give you the clear plastic bag. You have to ask, okay, or inform guests that they can purchase a sleeve at Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities for $50. That must be another shop in the park.
Yep.
As explained to us, this is a supply chain issue. When we asked about the price of the experience being adjusted to account for the lack of a carrying sleeve, we were told that the sleeve was previously considered quote-unquote complimentary and that the price won't be adjusted. We're told that the price the guests are paying is for the lightsaber hilt and kyber crystal. The sleeve is not calculated in the price. Of course, for nearly 3 years now, guests have been given a sleeve at the end of the experience, so a few very vocal guests were not happy with the change after they exited the experience. That said, business is booming at Doc Ondor as guests shell out $50 more per lightsaber to have a themed carrying case and not a generic plastic bag. Till the Spire. Okay, and there's been an update.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. I did want to comment on the situation before we got into it. So, just to kind of summarize here, the idea was you're spending all this money on this experience and this lightsaber. Keep in mind that I've also been hearing that the quality of these lightsabers is not nearly as good as some of the others that are out there, even some of the toys that have been in existence in the past, and certainly some of the third-party, light sword companies that are very careful not to run afoul of any trademarks. They're putting out some really, really good stuff. And apparently this mass-marketed stuff coming out of Disney isn't necessarily, quite as good. Maybe not the kind of value that people are expecting when they spend that kind of money at the parks. So I guess they felt that this canvas, rather nice-looking canvas sleeve, that the sling, really, because you could wear it over your shoulder, it actually looks pretty good with a cosplay, is no longer included. Look, when you make something available and then you take it away and now you're giving them less value, yeah, people are going to be pissed. And the fans really did pitch a fit about this. Now you want to charge us extra because of supply chain issues. So as I had said behind the scenes, on the one hand, just keep in mind, if you're upset about the supply chains, let's go Brandon. Let's just keep that in mind.
You know what I'm going to say, okay? I'm going to say, I'm the Disney employee. I'm going to say, sorry, but the sleeves were complimentary. And you know what? You're not going to get a plastic sleeve now. Get out of here.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's going to go over real well. But, yeah, go on to the update.
Well, apparently there's a follow-up article. Savvy's Workshop now providing discount on lightsabers following guest complaints regarding downgrade to plastic bags for a carrying case. I have a question. There's supply chains for the nice bags, but not supply chain issues for the plastic. I mean, I'm getting confused. I'm getting tongue-tied for the fancy Velcro vinyl bags. But they were able to make up plenty of plastic bags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
All right, so just yesterday, Savvy's Workshop in Star Wars Galaxy said stop handing out the black lightsaber sheaths with purchases due to quote-unquote supply chain issues. This carrying case of sorts is listed as one of the included pieces with the purchase of the $299.99 custom lightsaber guests can build in the workshop. When guests asked for a replacement or some sort of restitution for the downgrade, they were told that the plastic bag was an acceptable replacement and that is what they were given to carry around their expensive collectible. That's not cheap.
No, it's not.
Walking around in the park.
No, it's not, and that's why I commented on the quality too.
Yeah. Today, in what has become the typical course of action for Disney World in the last few years, the management once again responded to the public shaming on social media and has started to provide a discount on the experience. Sans sheaths. Guests are now being given a 10% discount of roughly $22 for cast members we spoke with at Savvy's today. The carrying case usually provided is made of black fabric and a detachable shoulder strap. The inside of the bag is partially lined with molded foam to keep the blade protected. I want to make a point, at least based on what I've read. I don't know if I've just read it now. I've read it. It sounded like this was just part of the package. This was not a complimentary item. It never said was never listed as get a complimentary. For the first couple of years, they'll get a complimentary sleeve to put this in.
Well, then they shouldn't have been ambiguous about it. By being ambiguous, they left a certain implication. And then when someone goes back and it's not the case, what changed?
They're changing the deal. That's what's going on here.
Pray they don't alter it further. Well, I was going to say, they're talking about supply lanes. I'm surprised they don't make part of the experience. If you're going to, make a lightsaber, you have to go mine the kyber crystal yourself in the crystal caves of Ilum. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Ilum was destroyed by the First Order when they turned it into the new Super Death Star. So there are no kyber crystals anymore. Good luck. Now we're going to have to charge you 10 times as much for your lightsaber because there's supply chain issues because of the sequel trilogy.
Yay, of course. That's what they should say. And it'll be canon too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You'll have some First Order stormtroopers saying it. Do you know what I don't understand? Though, if they sell like fancier bags in another part of the park, maybe to keep your customers happy, and if it is indeed a supply chain issue, grab those bags and offer those instead, and just eat the cost of that. Wouldn't that make more sense?
Not for Disney, apparently.
I mean, these are expensive experiences.
Yes, they are. And this is what I'm talking about.
I'm not even saying this stuff is quality, but they're not.
When you have fans out there that are either going to third-party dealers and getting better lightsabers, or some very good crafters making their own lightsabers that are better than what Disney does, and then Disney's charging these kind of prices and not giving you something to protect your investment with, well, the more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Well, speaking of Disney, theater owners sound piracy alarm over Disney's Black Widow streaming reveal.
Yeah. This was a little schadenfreude when I read it.
This is funny. Throughout the pandemic, a new studio event picks from Wonder Woman 1984 to Godzilla vs. Kong to Black Widow are fueling piracy because of their dual releases on streaming and in cinemas.
Gee, you think?
The minute a movie hits a streaming service, pristine copies are available at a myriad sites. In normal times, there aren't such good quality options until a title has come to the end of its traditional theatrical run, but the pandemic crisis has shortened the windows dramatically in a bid to grow streaming services. Following a long period of relative peace between exhibitors and studios, the National Association of Theater Owners on July 18th blasted the Walt Disney Company for compromising the fate of theatrical by disclosing that Black Widow collected $60 million revenue from Disney Plus Premier Access in addition to its global box office debut of nearly $159 million during the July 9th to 11th weekend, hence putting the worldwide start at a publicity-friendly $218 million plus. One of the interesting things, I forget who posted on his site, was it Viva Fry? It was somebody who was actually saying we can actually talk about the numbers because they had to disclose the numbers for Black Widow because of the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit.
That's exactly right.
That's why we're finding out about all this.
And I think, though, that as like Valiant Renegade has pointed out, there is going to come a tipping point where these studios are going to have to start providing this information, because how else can an investor make a determination without that information? That's why, the whole Nielsen rating system came into existence back in the day. How do I know your show is doing well? How do I know you can justify what you're charging me to advertise on that show? So they had to start putting out, ratings numbers. Well, I think the same is going to come from, what do you call it? From streaming. Not that streaming has commercials, but an investor in your company is going to go, how do I know that your streaming service is valued as much as you claim it is? Yeah. What are your viewership numbers like? I'm supposed to take your word for it right now? Yes. Going forward, I don't think that's going to be the case. But in this particular instance, we have the numbers to look at, and it ain't good.
The NATO statement didn't mince words, saying that the day-and-date release strategy for Black Widow undercut the tentpole's box office potential and promoted piracy, in addition to being responsible for the movie's quote-unquote stunning collapse in its second weekend in theatrical revenues. In addition to dropping an unprecedented 41% from Friday to Saturday during the opening weekend, Black Widow was the #1 pirated title of the July 19th week, per the news site Torrent Freak. Ditto for many
That's another important point that not enough people... That is a lead that gets buried all the time, okay? We have numbers on how many people have pirated it, but we don't have numbers on how many people are subscribing and watching it on Disney Plus. Really?
Well, to be fair, on Disney Plus, you had to pay for it, correct?
Yes. So those numbers should be very easily available.
So think about it. One person pays for it, and he just makes a digital copy and sticks it on the torrent site, right? And then
that's exactly how it happens. Yeah.
Piracy clearly impacts male-driven fanboy films. I don't like that expression at all. They will go out.
No, it's ridiculous. It applies to everything or nothing.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a studio executive that said that crap. Okay. Yet NATO didn't attack HBO Max, even though such day-and-date titles during the pandemic era likewise have been heavily pirated. Sources note that the Warner Media streamer has far less reach than Disney Plus, and that HBO Max has never revealed viewership numbers like Disney did. It is interesting that they are calling out Disney. Maybe they don't take Warner Brothers seriously enough to want to warrant. Maybe Disney's scared them the most.
And what really bothers me here is you don't think that Cruella and every other film was pirated. It does happen. It's almost saying, well, men pirate, women don't do it. Maybe women don't know how because men are more technological. I mean, that's how it's coming off to me. That's how I would take it if I was a woman.
You know what? Also, it's the whole image of the guy living in his parents' basement with the stubble and the gut on the computer all the time, and he's the one that's stealing all this stuff.
Sure, that might have been fine back in the 80s and the 90s when most people didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But now, literally everybody knows how to download a torrent program and find shared files. It's pretty much standard now. It's ridiculous that people would ever even make that kind of a comment like that.
Rosefire. Sounds suspicious that the streaming companies are hiding their numbers. What are they so afraid of that they are compelled to conceal data from the public?
No, that's exactly right. If you feel strongly about your numbers, you're going to be open about them. You know, if you are not, having transparency, you're clearly hiding something. And that's what investors are starting to look at too. Yeah, go ahead and go into this one, but I'm gonna question this data a little bit.
Okay, so Black Widow lost $600 million to piracy. Mm-hmm. The past couple of years have been pretty weird for movie releases. After numerous delays throughout 2020, studios started trying their hand at same-day release of their biggest films on streaming platforms as well as theaters. The results have been hard to track, as has the fallout. We've heard from creators like Denis Villeneuve, who was pretty upset about when his highly anticipated Dune adaptation was released on HBO Max. Patty Jenkins was similarly displeased with Wonder Woman 1984, released on the platform in December of 2020. But perhaps no day-and-date streaming movie release was more talked about than Black Widow. The Scarlett Johansson-led Marvel film was one fans had been asking for years, which finally got made only after the character had been killed off in the main MCU continuity. Disney released it on Disney Plus. On the same day it was released in theaters. That didn't go over well. Johansson ended up suing Disney over it, claiming she lost as much as $50 million because her pay for the film was partially tied to its box office numbers, and the company had refused to renegotiate after deciding to go streaming route. Well, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Now Deadline has compiled an extensive report on the same-day streaming experiments, and it seems there's a very large factor in the mix: piracy. Adding to the further erosion of the box office for any theatrical day-and-date release on streaming is the fact that these movies are pirated properly with clean 4K copies in several languages spread around the world. Deadline's report claims by the end of August, sources in the know informed us that Black Widow had been pirated more than 20 million times. The report goes on to estimate that Black Widow could have lost as much as $60 million due to piracy.
So this is why I think this is a bit disingenuous. Okay, first, they're citing all of these directors and film producers that are upset about the day and date, and then implying that this is because of piracy. This is not their primary concern. They don't care about the piracy. They're losing money because it's going onto the streaming service.
Okay. So, I mean, this is a totally legit, put piracy aside. Let's assume everyone's paying for this movie. They are losing money. The theaters are losing money. The directors are losing money because people are not, okay, so we look at Box Office Mojo. We know how much Black Widow and Dune and all these other movies made in the theater, right? We quote those numbers on a weekly basis. How much do these movies make from the streaming service? Zero. Because people are already subscribing to the damn thing. They're like, well, why should I go out and spend money at the theater when I got it right here in my home?
Right. If you're an HBO,
that's the real piracy. That's the first line of piracy, is the studios themselves screwing over the filmmakers. That's what these people are really upset about. The piracy is secondary, okay? The piracy is taking from the streaming service. The pirates that first pirated it are being pirated from by other people, and you've made it available to them by putting it on your streaming service. If you hadn't gone day and date, it wouldn't have been possible. The only pirates that would be out there would be, going to the theater and record it on a camcorder, which, I know people that have, downloaded it and gone, oh, fuck, I'm not watching this.
Like
seriously.
Talking and the camera shakes. And
yeah, exactly.
That is the actual theater going experience. You can have an annoying person talking behind you.
Well, it's actually worse because it ends up and that's before you add the person in front of you talking and the guy next to you taking pictures of his soda and shit like that.
Well, good thing we now have the caption screenings now, so you can at least read it.
Well, for some of them, yeah. That's not all theaters yet, but we'll see.
I am curious though. Do you think it's possible that perhaps Black Widow was pirated more than something like Dune or Godzilla?
Well, and that was actually
you can just subscribe to HBO Max for the month and just watch the movie.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was.
Because it's extra money on the Disney platform.
No, you're right. Yeah. That's the other thing that I was kind of thinking about and really hadn't gotten to, and that's the fact that most the studios are not going to accept this, but it's absolutely true. People that really care about something will go and pay for it. They will own the physical media. They will go to the theater to see it. They will buy the merchandise. They will do all the things, right? But the person that's kind of curious but doesn't care enough to spend the money on it will go, well, maybe I'll pirate it. I'll get it for free. I'll sneak in through the door,
Or you can go to your
That's money you would not have gotten anyway, dumb shit. Really. That's what it comes down to.
Or some people may check it out from their local public library.
It's very interesting because it's from a financial standpoint, there's really no difference, is there?
There isn't. I forgot what, I'm not going to speak for the library system. But I'll say this, it's sort of something, it's almost like a loophole. Because libraries get movies in all the time. And I guess as long as you're just looking at it, it's fine.
Dude,
if you make a copy of something from the library, you're going to get into trouble.
The fact that you say it's a loophole says the world to me. It's like gambling is a sin unless the church is doing it to raise money for, a roof.
Is that we love our libraries, do we not?
Oh, absolutely, and okay. Honestly, I think that I'm making the extreme comparison here because actually I think the better comparison is the public library versus the rental service, right? I mean, it's the one disc and it's circulated out,
yes.
Whether the rental company's making their money on it or the public library makes nothing because it's public,
Yes.
I mean, it's a similar distribution model, but it's meant to be your tertiary market where we've already made our money from it. We've sold the DVDs, we've done it on streaming service, we had it in the theaters, we've made all of our money. Now, let's distribute it because we're now moving on to another movie already.
Actually, you know what? I will say the studios do work with libraries. They do allow certain movies for free access where you can show the movie at the library. and they'll allow you to do that.
Well,
it's not every company.
They get tax breaks for doing it,
Probably.
but
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean,
hey, look, I'm not faulting that. Nanette and I give to charity, and we take a tax deduction too.
Gotcha,
I mean,
gotcha.
I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, it doesn't change. I mean, so you give a little of the credit to the government, that you would otherwise give to the altruistic company. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't care. It's still an altruistic thing, so I'm not,
and that's
diminishing
how you can look
that.
at it. But Black Widow wasn't worth watching even for free, really.
That's exactly it. I have not seen Black Widow. I could hit the high seas, but I haven't bothered. It's not worth the fucking bandwidth to me. Neither was Loki. Neither was
I haven't seen
the Winter Soldier and the Falcon.
And,
None of those movies are. I saw WandaVision all the way to the end. I was so fucking disappointed. I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with Marvel. I really am. I couldn't care less what they do anymore. So now when I see, and although we're not probably going to get into it tonight, but what do they call it? Captain Wonderful Marvel Chick movie is going into massive reshoots, which tells me there's stuff going on behind the scenes. And if you're not on Cameron Pasha's Patreon, you really should be, because he's got some really great insight on it that not all of the outlets are talking about because they don't know as much as he does. But yeah, I think that Marvel's just become such a clusterfuck. It's not worth my time anymore. It's not even worth my time and bandwidth to download it for free. That's how little I care about it.
Yeah, this is typical of companies like Disney. They won't reveal losses to appear strong to the shareholder, such as hiding the streaming numbers or MCU Phase 4 fizzle. Sounds like they, there's more, are blaming Black Widow losses on piracy and not on the facts. They had the film stream simultaneously in Plus, and the character was already dead, so lack of interest in viewers.
Honestly, it's a shell game, and I would say it's I see this kind of duplicitousness,
yes,
yeah, as not too dissimilar from what Enron did. Okay, they puff themselves up. They're playing a Ponzi scheme. They make themselves sound more valuable than they are. It's one step removed from, hey, you like that big Golden Gate Bridge out there in the Bay? That's mine. You can buy it from me for, well, I don't know what, $10,000. Guess what? He didn't own it in the first place. Well, you want to buy my stock? We're worth this much. Just take my word for it. Oh, the stock isn't really worth that much? Oh, well, too late. Too bad. Well, I blame the investors. The investors need to start saying, you know what? I'm not taking your word for it. I'm not investing in you until you prove it. Show me the damn receipts.
We both missed video rental stores. Did we do a good old days on mom and pop video stores?
We didn't, but you know what? Next, in 2 weeks, Netter is doing Be Kind Rewind. That might be the best time to do it.
Be a good time to talk about stuff then, or even as a.
So in 2 weeks, Be Kind Rewind is the Saturday rewatch on Netter's Network, and then come over here, and that's what our good old days will be about.
Yeah, that sounds like an idea. We can talk about Blockbuster as well. I'll tell you why Blockbuster went the way of the dodo. I found out what their critical error was.
I'd be interested to hear about that.
For Geeky Geezers saying people will pay for good content and pirate bad content. The numbers for Afterlife and No Way Home speak for themselves. Yeah. Well, I think what it is, too, with the bad content, people want to see if it's bad. And then they see that it's bad, and they don't want to pay for it. I think if, Black Widow was this incredible movie, I think even people that quote-unquote pirated, they would go pay for a legitimate
Exactly right. If I see a movie that I've obtained through unconventional means, okay, and I really like it, and I'm not even talking illegal, okay?
Well,
I'm talking.
Let's say you catch it on network TV.
No. Even better. Nanette and I were at a friend's house who had cable, and we watched a movie. We only got to see part of it, and right off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was. It was a fantasy story, really interesting. Nanette and I were both interested, but we didn't get to see the end of it. So I'm like, it was a really good movie. Let's just buy it. And we found out what the name of it was, and we bought the DVD because own physical media, right? That brings me to another reason why I think a lot of piracy happens. If you don't release it on DVD, people want to own it. So right now, the only way to own The Mandalorian on physical media is to make your own DVD of it. And, it's the same thing. Well, that's not the case with Cobra Kai. You guys have all heard from me. I may have been able to watch Cobra Kai through unconventional means, but I purchased the DVD of season 1 and season 2, and I pre-ordered season 3. And as soon as season 4 becomes available for pre-order, I will do that too.
Because they done good.
Because they did great. Yeah. And I want to be able to watch it whenever I want to be able to watch it.
Oh, it's funny, Daniel LaRusso on that show. They do feel they do act like how the characters would act if they had grown up, which I think. I
agree, and I think they've put a lot of thought into it, and they even poke fun at some of the tropes in the movies and actually make them make more sense. I think I mentioned this on a previous stream. Season 4, I don't think this is a spoiler for anybody anymore because it's in all of the marketing. Tony Silver has come back, and the actor who plays Tony Silver is actually a pretty good actor, but he wasn't that good back in Karate Kid 3. He was just fucking over the top bizarre.
He was like evil in that movie.
He was like mustache twirling evil. Oh. Like, why is he acting like this? It makes no sense. And in fact, they address it in season 4 where, Kreese says to him, I need you to come back and help me with Cobra Kai like you did, back in the 80s. He's like, back in the 80s, I was so strung out on coke, I spent the whole summer torturing a teenager. What kind of a crazy person does that? And you look back and you're like, you know what? He just summed up his character in Karate Kid 3. He's absolutely right.
I think you've seen 3 recently. What I found fascinating about 3, I felt bad for Daniel because Daniel actually was taking Miyagi's advice in the beginning, saying, you know what, I don't need to win it again.
Right.
Somebody else. I've already proven myself. But then these guys start accosting him, and he gets mad, and then Miyagi doesn't even want to help him at first. And of course, in the end, he does, which is good. But it was, I felt that he actually had matured a little bit over the course of the last couple of movies, and he was trying.
And
to
dude,
do the right thing.
I got to tell you, I've seen some. They have a lot of reaction videos out there for different shows and movies and whatnot. And some of the great reaction videos have been real world martial artists watching Cobra Kai and the movies and so forth, and discussing them. And what I love about these martial artists is they're brutal but fair. So they look at, for example, the crane technique, and they're like, okay, obviously this is Hollywood fabrication, but it's also Hollywood shorthand for something that really does exist. And then they kind of walk you through it. And then they use some real examples from real competitions, and they're like, yeah, it's fantasy, but not as bad as you think it is. And let's give a little bit of grace because part of the reason it appears the way it does is because Noriyuki Morita and what's the one that plays Daniel?
Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio were unable to do the real technique. And then they show somebody doing an appropriate one-legged kick. And it's like, yeah, you need a lot of training to do something like that. It's not. And whether it would really work in a competition is also questionable. But the way it was done, and why it worked in the first movie and why it didn't work in the second one, the guy walks you through it and goes, yeah, okay, so Johnny pauses here and then walks into the kick because he was confused. He didn't know what was coming. Right? Where Cho Sen in the second movie, he does a feint and gets Daniel to commit to it and then counters it. Why? Because he knew the technique. Because maybe he'd been taught this by his sensei who learned from Miyagi's father, right?
Yeah.
So, and they go through it all, and it's like, wow. And then, he goes into the third movie. Well, yes, it's bizarre that somebody would start going into a kata in the middle of a competition, which causes Mike Barnes to pause for a moment. That makes sense. And then he shows some real mixed martial arts where people do all kinds of really goofy things. They're showboating. And what happens? It causes the opponent to I'm not going to get roped into something. Let me back off and watch what happens. So, I mean, I love the fact that these real martial artists go, yeah, I see the Hollywood in this, but there is some real world stuff to it too. Don't, dump all over it. I like that fairness, that even-handedness, as opposed to some of the dicks on the interwebs that just look for reasons to pick things apart.
Yeah, because they can't enjoy anything.
Yeah. So if you wanna hear more about dicks on the internet picking things apart unfairly, come check out Friday Night Last Call this Friday, where we'll be talking more about the Book of Boba Fett with Stephanie Janicek.
And apparently all more division in the Star Wars community, I guess, or maybe not. Maybe that's
completely unnecessary. But yes, absolutely right.
So news: Warner Media, Viacom, CBS exploring possible sale of the CW network. Melissa Harrison's sons, you may be, Team Ghostplay, you may be happy about this.
What I love about articles like this, and this is why I am such a big follower of Valiant Renegade. If you're not following him, you're missing a whole dimension of geek culture, because we can talk about good writing in our franchises and wokeness and all this kind of stuff, but there is a business aspect that mandates certain things happening, and some of the things you don't understand why they're happening. It's because of big companies doing things behind the scenes, necessitating some of the decisions that are made. So let's get into it.
All right, so we have from Reuters, AT&T Inc.'s Warner Media and Viacom CBS Inc. are exploring a possible sale of a significant stake in all their CW network, which they jointly own. If any of you are scratching your head over that, remember that it used to be the WB network, and it also the other channel was UPN.
Right.
UPN was the Paramount network, and then they just joined forces because I guess they were fledgling. So we'll join forces and we'll become the CW.
And for those of you that follow me over on Friday Night Last Call and the MeWe group, where we talk about fixing the DC cinematic universe, it all kind of starts there, right? Where they were doing really well when Warner Brothers was just Warner Brothers, putting it out on the WB, right? With Smallville and whatnot. And then when it became the CW, it got a little bit more convoluted, and they had to change a lot of what they were doing. And so again, a lot of the things that frustrate us most, why didn't they spin off Smallville's characters to other productions? Why didn't they move that Superman character up to the big screen, continue, and so forth? Well, part of that is because it became the CW and wasn't that clear cut anymore. This is what I'm talking about. The business decisions pushing, what happens on the big and small screens.
It's funny, ever since the combination, I haven't seen any real Paramount properties on the CW. It's felt like a Warner Brothers network, but it really isn't. The whole idea was you would have like Star Trek Enterprise and Smallville on the same channel, right?
Yep.
That would be, and WWF. The
dysfunction at Viacom CBS has gone back much, much farther than people realize. It goes back way before J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot ever got involved. It's been a whole metric F ton of dysfunction.
It's just gotten worse.
And
that's why we look at some of the things in the past and we look on it more fondly.
Yeah.
Even though there were bad mistakes, because just compared to what's come recently.
I can only speculate that this is some corporate behind the scenes and this is again just speculation on my part. As you point out, it's mostly Warner Brothers productions that seem to be getting torpedoed by the CBS side of it. And it does seem like that. We've started a
a unified, project here, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to ruin the other side. It would be like, if the Russians and the Americans back in the 80s were working on some project, and you wouldn't have been surprised if there had been some spying and, stealing of information and, sabotage going on. I think that's what's been going on with the CW since its inception.
I think what happened was that someone over at the UPN loved Roswell, and then Smallville beat it in the ratings, and and then they just kicked Roswell to the curb, and I think they've been angry ever since.
As ridiculous as that might sound, that's literally the kind of stuff that goes on with these companies. So, yeah. And, I'm sorry, people, all you naysayers, no, there's not a civil war going on at Disney, at Lucasfilm or whatever. No, you're a moron. There's always a friggin' civil war going on at all of these production companies. It's just determining who's on what side.
It's corporate infighting. That's what
yes, it's always happening, and it's always driving what you're seeing on the screens. And for you not to understand that, you're naive and foolish and not paying attention.
Remember RoboCop? That's a great movie showing corporate infighting. How you have
yeah, they were basically lampooning their own industry.
Yes. But let's see. Let me go ahead and read this, though. But Warner Media and Viacom, which they jointly own, the Wall Street Journal. Okay, Nexer Entertainment, Inc. is among the suitors, according to the report. Report said an agreement could be reached soon, though the talks could still fall apart. There are other interested parties as well, but the disclosures with Nexstar are most advanced, it added. The details of the other parties involved and the exact time by when the deal could be reached was not known immediately, according to the report. I have a question for you.
Sure.
If Warner Brothers and Viacom are able to sell this off to some other company, does that mean they get to retain The Flash and Superman and Lois and all these other shows? Or do those become HBO Max properties and now they can stay on HBO Max?
I can answer that question, and unfortunately the answer is it depends. Again, it's like so many other things that we talk about. It depends on the contract and what the sale includes. Right now, it's pretty amorphous. Right now, all they're saying is they're looking to sell off the CW. Now, what the terms of that are going to be depends on who comes to the table and who's willing to buy. Honestly, now, in a different world, with different companies in this same situation, I would say, well, you know what? Warner Brothers might just buy out their own interests in CW. And they might take back, all of the, superhero stories and all of their particular products and just buy them back from Viacom. And Viacom might just buy back their interests in whatever they have on CW, if anything. Right?
Yeah.
But I think neither one of these companies are solvent enough to do that kind of a thing. So what might happen is, and this is where it starts to get really bad, you might end up with, like, for example, the television rights for all of these characters that are in their CW productions getting all tied up in somebody else, right? And I don't know, whoever buys it owns the TV rights to Batwoman and the Arrowverse and the whatever the hell is showing on the CW, right?
You would think Warner Brothers wants to take those back and maybe develop original television properties for streaming, streaming service.
I agree with you.
HBO Max.
I agree with you, but want to and are financially able to are not the same thing. That's the problem. And I feel like Warner Brothers is entering an era of where Marvel was just after they had created Marvel Studios, okay? Where they had licensed out all of their properties to other companies, which then they created Marvel Studios, filed for bankruptcy, were bought out by Disney. Now Disney was left holding a partially empty sack, and they're trying to get back everything that belongs to Marvel from the licensing agreements, which is why we have the situation we do with Spider-Man and the Marvel Universe and
the recently acquired and not yet integrated 20th Century Fox products and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very weird because I'm thinking Disney now owns ABC, but then they also own the Fox network, correct? Why own two networks?
Yes, provisionally, okay? Because remember, when they bought out Fox, they didn't get all of Fox, right?
Well, they didn't get the news out.
They didn't get the news elements, and there might have been some other things that didn't carry over as well. I'm not 100% certain. And again, we don't have access to the minutia of the details. We know broad strokes. We can only guess at the more minutia of those kinds of elements. But I'm using those as examples. I think Disney, Freudian slip there. DC and Warner Media are entering that same sort of a quagmire with their products. They're losing control because they don't have the strength to hold on to it. So now I think you're going to find a lot of, going back to the example I always use to simplify things, the Batman 66 thing, where you have Fox owning the TV rights to something, you have Warner Brothers owning the character of Batman, and nobody's able to really profit from them. I think that's what you're going to see a lot more for a lot more characters going forward with these CW properties. And in the very near future, very possibly your Snyderverse and the stuff in the movies, even though that's not what this article is specifically talking to.
Right. Rosefire says, competition business has always existed, but lately it seems to me that all the big companies are punching down due to bad financial and PR decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and we've talked about this. It's all a lot more complicated than any one aspect that we look at in a lot of these articles. But you do have to take into account the government mandates and lockdowns and pandemics and all these other things that play into global business, supply chains. All of these have rippling effects, and the global market and all kinds of political matters related to that. All of these stuff are factors, but what they all tend to do is they are hurting all of these businesses, and they are losing market share. They are losing profitability. And really, a lot of these properties that they put a lot of money into are losing money. And there's a lot of reasons why. And if they're going to stay afloat, they've got to start making decisions that make them money.
And that'll be a good transition. I did want to say goodnight to Rosefire.
Thanks for being here. We super appreciate it. We know you do oftentimes come back and listen to some of the stuff you miss. We really, really do appreciate that. Boomer, you really do have to take advantage of these longer streams that you can break up into easy chapters.
I know.
Just watch Viva Fry. He does it all the time. He's doing a stream. Like I say, he's in parallel with us talking about legal issues with Robert Barnes. And then throughout the week, he takes that show and he breaks it up into the individual topics.
I know. Look at... let me see. Agent Boomer says, I guess you're not important anymore. No bots tonight. Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, Netter got hit with a bunch of bots last night. What was it? 4 or 5 bots last night. That was crazy. It took 3 wrenches just to keep up with the little buggers.
Anyway, speaking of companies...
5 bots? Okay, so it was 5 bots.
Speaking of companies making good decisions, and this should probably be this would be a good example.
I only throw stuff like this in there just because I feel like we need a bright spot once in a while.
Well, not only that, but this is an example of an article I really should clip out because it's Ghostbusters related.
Yeah.
And everybody loves Ghostbusters right now, don't we? First look at Ghostbusters.
I'll tell you what, Ghostbusters News, which is the outlet we're getting this from, I follow him on YouTube, and he'll put out an article that I'm not interested in, but I'll go watch it just because everything else that he does is great. I want to give him the clicks and the likes and the whatevers, but yeah.
Look at this though. First look at Ghostbusters Ultimate Collection special features.
Yes, but that's kind of burying the lead, I felt, in a lot of ways.
Oh, well, the underscore thing, we can talk about this.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But so now we're starting to get clips of, because we know that there's 2 DVDs, or I'm sorry, Blu-rays, HD.
No, I can explain this. They explain
Please.
What's in it now.
Yes.
because you were saying,
Well, I get confused because I don't understand the differences in these media too.
To be fair, I had to read the article over a couple of times, but now I think I fully understand.
Okay, go ahead and explain.
Okay, available February 1st, the highly anticipated Ghostbusters Ultimate Collection is no doubt going to be a must-buy for any fan. Not only will it come with Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, and Ghostbusters Afterlife on 4K Ultra HD. So, you're getting the movies on 4K Blu-ray discs.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and it says and Blu-ray.
Right.
And you're getting Blu-ray discs of these items.
Right.
So, if you don't have a 4K Blu-ray player right now, Troy, you're all set. You can just watch the regular Blu-rays.
Right,
it comes with the regular Blu-rays as well. That's why they're 2 discs each. One is a 4K Blu-ray, one is a regular Blu-ray. Kind of like how in the past you had Blu-ray DVD combos. This is a 4K Blu-ray, regular Blu-ray combo.
Yeah.
Okay. And it also contains, along with the Ghostbusters, okay, and also available in 4K, are the digital versions of these movies, including Answer the Call. Packins. The gift set will also include 2.
Which again, I do want to reiterate, those are kind of like freebie throw-ins because if you're paying for something, you want a digital version of it too. That's great. You can have it. It costs them nothing, and to include 2016 for free as a digital download literally costs them nothing. Paul Feig and those guys don't make anything extra on that because it's not physical media.
Nope.
Go ahead.
The gift set will also include 2 bonus discs full of new, never-before-seen content, along with a reprint of the rare 1985 book Making Ghostbusters.
So those
also mentioned everything else comes encased in a light-up ghost trap. Won't that go well with the Proton Pack you ordered?
Well, in fairness, I do have some actual costume quality ghost traps.
But ghost traps.
Well, I'm going to be doing some work on them to make them a little bit more screen accurate, and I'm kind of hoping that maybe after, because we have our Proton Pack, or we've got them pre-ordered, and we've got our Neutrona wands. I would love it if Hasbro did a similar quality ghost trap, maybe as a tie-in to the next Ghostbuster movie that will certainly be coming. And when it's announced, of course, we will bring that information to you. But it's those 2 bonus DVDs or CDs or HDs or Blu-rays or whatever the hell they are, that with all that added footage and behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff, that I think is the real thing that's drawing a lot of people to this. There's a lot of people saying, you know what, I already have Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on HD. I'll just get the Afterlife when it comes out on HD.
That's me.
Yeah, sure. But a lot of people are going, oh, but it won't come with this extra behind the scenes footage, and that's why there's a little bit of teasing that goes, and that's the main part of this article, showing the stills of some of the actors that read for these roles that, for whatever reason didn't, in some cases because they were committed to something else. Maybe they played another role that ended up, being dropped, and so forth, like I'm sorry, what was that? SCTV.
Paid Walter Peck was supposed to play Louis Tully.
Right. But another one that read for Louis Tully ended up playing his cousin in another deleted scene. That guy from SCTV. What was his name? His picture is in the article here.
Oh, let me click on the article actually because it does give a full listing. I meant to click on the actual article itself. I have to say, what looks interesting in this though is the a preview cut, like a rough cut of the original movie. You get to see an alternate cut of it, which is kind of neat. Oh, is it Eugene Levy?
Eugene Levy, thank you.
Oh,
originally, he read for the role of Tully as well.
I could see him as Tully actually.
And for whatever reason, he didn't end up with that role. But thank you. Netta and I are making out. She just gave me a bunch of kisses, chocolate Hershey's kisses.
Oh, that's nice.
So instead, he ended up playing Tully's cousin,
in some outtake scenes that didn't make it into the movie. They'll be included on this disc. And the more of these things that come up, plus some of the alternate actresses to play Dana and whatnot, very, very interesting. So that's what people are starting to really, really look at. So this has been a very popular item. A lot of people want it. So many so that it's actually sold out on all the sites, including Amazon. But as Ghostbusters News points out here, the fact that they're doing this news push and marketing push and showing more of what's involved, why would they bother doing that unless the plan is to produce more? And there's an expectation that we will be seeing more availability for more pre-orders in the coming months. So, I mean, that's another example of something that's doing so well they can't even meet demand, but they are going to. They knew how much they were going to produce, and they're just going to produce more because they're selling it.
If this movie hadn't done well, they wouldn't be going to this much trouble.
Well, and this is exactly what I've told you. You know, if this doesn't, and I think so far the numbers for box office haven't matched what 2016 did, but it's done better as far as profitability goes because of how much money it costs them to make by comparison to the budget, that the inflated budget of 2016.
And they're probably looking at home video too now.
But they're looking at all the marketing. And I've been saying this all along. This is another one of those areas where we don't see those numbers, but we have to imagine they're pretty big. You know, between the Neutrona ones and you know, proton packs and, you know, this Ultimate Collection, they're making pretty darn good money, and they've been making that money even before the release. I speculated that they've made so much money just in the marketing of this movie, they probably went into this breaking even before they started selling tickets.
Yeah.
That's based on nothing, but it's just a speculation on my part. Whatever the actual numbers are, I think that Sony's pretty happy right now.
And
Sony's had a damn good year here.
That's because they focused on making movies and releasing them in theaters and not focusing on a bunch of BS.
And focusing on product that the fans wanted. And
Even
not pissing the fans off.
not
And saying, if
Venom
you don't come
2.
see this, you're a bunch of man babies.
Yeah, which is what their original take for 2016 was, and how did that work out?
And they learned their lesson there.
They learned their lesson, and you know, when a company learns their lesson and tries to do right, then you know, show them some support.
I'm telling you, I still see a lot of goofballs out there that are pissed off that they caved by adding 2016 as a free download. And I'm like,
No.
Guys, you don't realize this is just another backhand at 2016. You should be laughing and applauding.
All you have to do if you want to get back then is just don't download 2016. You know, and it's not included.
Or like I said, give it away to somebody.
You're not
Give it away to somebody who might otherwise have bought a DVD of 2016.
Do you know why digital copies exist in Blu-rays and DVDs? And I think this is the reason. They didn't want people getting used to making their own MP3s and MP4s of the movies they bought.
Because guys, let me tell you, when I talk about owning physical media, okay, just last night we did a rewatch of If You Could See What I Hear, right? That movie has never been released on DVD. For me to watch it on DVD, I had to do a VHS to DVD transfer. Guess what? Under the copyright law, fair use, making a copy for my own personal use after I've already paid for it, 100% legal.
Yeah.
In fact, I would argue that all of these copy guards that they put on stuff is actually an infringement of fair use and an infringement on my rights, you know, as a consumer of this product. Be that as it may, if you have a DVD of something, you've paid for it, and you want to watch it as you travel on your, you know, personal access device, you have to
do a rip of it and make a digital copy of it in order to watch it. Legally, you have the right to do that. But I think Boomer is absolutely right. What you said, they don't want you to get used to doing it yourself. They want you to download that digital copy. And as a result, as a counter result, I have never, in all the DVDs that I've bought, that I have a little card in there that offers you the digital download, I've never used one of them. Never once. Because it's so easy for me to just do a DVD rip of it myself.
Oh, you got a treasure trove of digital copies then, don't you?
I could. If I were to buy like a multi-terabyte hard drive, I could set up a, never have to pull the disc down off the screen, just call it up as I want. But I don't bother because that's too much effort for me. But if Nanette and I and we've done this a couple times, if we're traveling and we know we're going to want to watch some movies, I'll rip a couple DVDs, to a drive and take it with me. Especially like when we used to go down to Metropolis for the Superman celebration. I'd rip a couple of the Superman movies and some episodes of Smallville and whatnot, take it with us.
We can watch it on the go.
Yeah.
Oh, look, Go Team Ghost Planet Go said that, Eugene Levy went on to play the dad on American Pie.
Yes, he did.
No, Eugene Levy's been in a lot of movies. He is in those Christopher Guest movies I love so much. The fake documentaries like Best in Show. I believe he's in that, and Waiting for Guffman. Kind of like the sort of spiritual follow-ups to This Is Spinal Tap, those types.
Lot of very funny. Yeah, I mean, he's a funny guy.
Comedian,
he really
great
is.
Comedian. He was in Splash too, the original Splash. Remember?
Was he?
I think he was the guy trying to find out if trying to catch the mermaid. He was the one trying to prove that Daryl Hannah was the mermaid, right? As I recall. I think it was Eugene Levy, wasn't it?
Oh, was he the one running around with a bucket trying to throw it on her and finally gets her at the end?
Yeah. Yeah, that was him.
Oh my gosh, I think you're right.
But this set looks very good. This and if you can't afford the fancy set, they're still releasing a 3-disc set that includes the first 2 movies and a Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing a certain Ghostbusters movie not being included because people don't want it in the sets. I'm kind of curious if they're going to include a digital copy of Afterlife. Of Don't Answer, the quote-unquote title Answer the Call. It's really 2016 Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
With even the smaller sets, or not even going to bother. I'm kind of curious, but I'm just going to be picking up Ghostbusters Afterlife as I own the first 2 on Blu-ray. But this sounds like a great collector.
It seems unlikely because I think the only reason is this. There is an argument to be made that this is the ultimate collection. And the only way to have a completely complete collection would be to just throw it in as a digital download. That's why they did it. But it doesn't make a lot of sense in a, 3-disc, set of 1, 2, and Afterlife.
But this looks super cool, and actually for what you're getting, I think it's a good price what you paid. I think you're getting a lot of cool stuff for what you paid.
One thing I do want to draw a comparison on, when I got all of my Karate Kid films, one of the things that I did just to make it easier on myself was I got Karate Kid 1, Karate Kid 2, and then I got a multi-disc set that had Karate Kid 3, Next Karate Kid, and the remake. With what's his name? Well, what I did was I put them all, you know how I do, I make my custom collection boxes with custom artwork and stuff.
Yeah.
Put them all together with the exception of the Jackie Chan one. The Jackie Chan one I put in its own separate custom cover, and instead of saying Karate Kid on it, I said the Kung Fu Kid. Because really, it's not karate, it's Kung Fu. They changed the story entirely.
Sometimes you want to make custom covers for DVDs that have horrendously bad covers.
Yeah.
One of them, one thing I love, and I'm not going to say which movie it is, companies do not put out your zombie movie and have one of the zombies on the front cover, one of the lead characters in the movie that may get bit and turn into a zombie at the end. Please don't do that when you have so many other zombies.
It's a spoiler, right?
Stop doing that.
That's why
always do that.
A lot of fans of the Planet of the Apes
series.
Oh,
We're really bothered by having the Statue of Liberty. Now, I understand
Statue release, yeah.
Because it's so long after, it really is an iconic scene. It's kind of like up there with No, I Am Your Father and stuff like that. I mean, it's not really a spoiler, but there is the possibility that another generation is going to be watching this, and you don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, you should have the cover for Empire, just Luke going, no! You know, like that horrible expression he has on his face.
So I have other
artwork you could put on these covers that will make someone interested. You don't got to put the big spoiler on the front cover.
But that's why I have a custom cover for the original Planet of the Apes, and this one isn't even mine. I didn't even do this myself. I got it from somebody else.
Releases on Blu-ray that they don't do that nonsense. They
have,
like,
that's
the original poster artwork. You know, like the cage and all that, which was from the poster.
I saw that. Was it Script Doctor? No. Retroblasting had a tweet out where he showed all of his Daniel Craig James Bond films in order, and all the spines are like pretty uniform except the last one. The last one changes the way it's set up and everything. It just doesn't fit. And he's like, the hell is wrong with you?
They do this crap all the time. Oh.
And again, this is why I just, make my own custom covers and don't even worry about that shit.
Don't get me started. I'll do
well, that's why I take, when it's like
home video rant sometime.
When it's like a movie series of 6, 7, 8 movies, that's why I do a custom cover that puts them all together in one 8-disc case, which takes up the amount of room that two DVDs would take up on your shelf. That's how I fit a lot more stuff on my
gotcha.
Up here.
Okay, cool. But and it sounds you have to do another video. I know you've just shown custom covers in the past, but maybe
maybe I should. You're right.
Yeah. All right, let's move on because it's a half hour and we have NFTs to talk about.
Whatever the fuck those are.
You know something? Why don't you keep quiet and let me read, and hopefully you'll figure all of this out, huh?
This isn't cryptocurrency, right? Or is it?
It's NFT stands for non-fungible token.
Oh yeah, we did talk about this before. I still don't understand it.
Okay. This is the gaming section of the stream. Feel free to tune out if you're not a fan of the video games. Of course, why wouldn't you be? Because video games are supposed to be wonderful fun, or are they? According to this article, after sharing plans for NFTs, the blockchain, and the metaverse... You know the metaverse?
Is that like the Matrix?
Yeah, except not as cool. Square Enix's share price has increased by 8% despite player backlash. If you know who Square Enix are, they make the Final Fantasy games. Maybe you've heard of those. I think they also own Tomb Raider now too, because they bought out that company, and they own other things too. But they're a big Japanese game company. Of course, they would probably consider themselves a global company at this point because everybody has to be global now, right?
Sure.
As reported by Bloomberg, this is the biggest jump for the company since last August. It happened today, the first day of trading since a letter was published over the new year. The letter, which was written by Square Enix president Yosuke Matsuda, was met with ire by players and industry figures alike for suggesting that those who, quote-unquote, play to have fun are currently the majority of the players, but this will change in the future. The shift is being touted as worrisome. Although Matsuda's letter does note that, however, we do observe examples here and there of overheated trading in NFT-based digital goods with somewhat speculative overtones, regardless of the observed value of the content provided. This obviously is not an ideal situation, he continues, but I expect to see an eventual right-sizing in digital goods deals as they become more commonplace among the general public, with the value of each content corrected to their true estimated worth, and I look for them to become as familiar as dealings in physical goods. Back in November of last year, Square Enix's financial results pointed towards this NFT shift as, quote-unquote, proof of concept. Million Arthur NFTs were a success, with the company promising it will, quote-unquote, transition to a full commercialization phase. Both in last year's financial results and the New Year's message, Matsuda focuses on quote-unquote token economics. By contrast, blockchain games, which have emerged from their infancy and are at this very moment entering a growth phase, are built upon the premise of a token economy and therefore hold the potential to enable self-sustaining game growth, he wrote. The driver that most enables such self-sustaining game growth is diversity, both in how people engage with interactive content like games and in their motivations for doing so. Okay, you on board?
Maybe?
On board? There you go. Okay.
I'm not sure what we're talking about here, but okay.
Listen, it's no longer about play to have fun. It's about play to earn. Do you want to play to earn, or do you want to be some guy over in the bar slumped over says, I used to be a gamer. It's a tough racket, as you slurp down your Jim Beam. Come on. You want, NFTs are for closers, okay? This is
okay.
Okay. I work with a coworker that was trying to explain this stuff to me, and I think he made a reference saying that it's so okay. I own the digital object, right? He says, well, you own a receipt of ownership, which means I own the object. No. So does the receipt of ownership actually work? And he says, yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Own physical media, people.
This is digital media, and this will be you own it. Okay. I'm going to read you some definitions I got online. Let's start with good old Wikipedia, the vast source of knowledge and wisdom on the internet. Do we not believe? Okay, what are you talking about? NFTs make no sense to me. I don't know why Ubisoft and other publishers are investing into it. They're all going in whole hog. Sega might be doubling back because they got a nasty reaction to it, but everyone thinks this is the future. Okay. According to Wikipedia, a non-fungible token is a unique, non-interchangeable unit of data shared on a blockchain, a form of digital ledger. NFTs can be associated with reproducible digital files such as photos, videos, and audio. You getting all this? You making some notes? There'll be a quiz.
Well, here's my question.
Yes.
Does this in any way prevent you from taking that digital product and making a copy of it?
I don't think so.
So who gives a crap?
The original. I think you own the original.
When I make a copy of a picture or a piece of art or whatever and print out my own copy of it, I don't care that I don't technically own the original. I got a print and I'm happy. Bye.
It's not the original. It's not. You want to be some loser with the copy? You be my guest. I'll be the winner with the original. Listen to me. I have a deal. I know this guy. Okay, we're kind of becoming partners in this new kind of venture firm on NFTs. And you and anyone in the chat, $20,000 on up front. I'll get you in the ground floor. Okay. Mm-hmm. I just got to give it to this gentleman. I can't go into details who he is, but he said I just got to get the money to him. Then he's got a meeting in the Bahamas at the end of the month. He'll be back
right
soon after. Come on. Okay, you don't want money. That's fine. You don't like money. Okay, I get it. Let me read you more definitions for this. Is from CNN. We love CNN, don't we? Maybe not. Okay. In the simplest terms, NFTs transform digital works of art and other collectibles into one-of-a-kind verifiable assets that are easy to trade on the blockchain. Although that may be far from simple for the uninitiated to understand, the payoff has been huge for many artists, musicians, and influencers and the like, with investors spending top dollar to own NFT versions of digital images. For example, Jack Dorsey's first tweet sold for $2.9 million. A video clip of LeBron James' slam dunk sold for over $200,000, and a decade-old neon cat GIF went for $600,000. What do you think, huh?
I think people are stupid, and a fool and his money are easily parted.
Okay, I got one more thing, and this is from Investopedia. We trust Investopedia, don't we? Non-fungible tokens are cryptographic assets on a blockchain with unique identification codes and metadata that distinguish them from each other. Unlike cryptocurrencies, they cannot be traded or exchanged at equivalency. This differs from fungible tokens like cryptocurrencies, which are identical to each other and therefore can be used as a medium for commercial transactions. What you need to know, NFTs are unique cryptological tokens that exist on the blockchain and cannot be replicated. NFTs can be used to represent real-world items like artwork and real estate. Tokenizing these real-world tangible assets allows them to be bought, sold, and traded more efficiently while reducing the probability of fraud. NFTs can also be used to represent individual identities, property rights, and more. I did read somewhere that you could actually use this technology. You know how you always say buy physical, but sometimes you buy a digital game online for your Xbox or your Switch or maybe even on Steam. Well, this would maybe allow it if you'd actually have a digital copy of a game that you could then give to somebody else, and they could just have it, and you wouldn't own it anymore, or sell it to somebody else. But I don't think that's what this technology is going to be used for. But theoretically, you could do that with this. That's what I heard somewhere.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so this takes original things and tokenizes them. When has tokenizing something ever been a good thing? Just saying. Just saying.
Listen, do you think this is all a scam, dude?
I reserve the term scam. Okay, I think it's
speculative, maybe,
because let's break economy down, right? Okay, why is gold so valuable? Okay, what good is gold? Okay, let's put it this way: when things get really bad, when things get so bad, inflation's through the roof, and people are starving, and you're trying to get a loaf of bread. What good is someone handing you a pile of gold? I don't give a crap about a pile of gold. I want a loaf of bread, or I'm going to die. Okay? Yeah. It's what is something really valuable? Why is something valuable? Something is valuable because it keeps you alive. But when bread is cheap, it's you don't value it as much as you do when you're starving, right? By the same token, we have put value in gold for whatever reason, but it's only because we choose to ascribe a dollar value to it. A dollar is not, it's just a piece of paper, right? In fact, in this country, it doesn't even represent silver and gold anymore because we removed it from the gold standard, So, in a way, when you talk about cryptocurrency, when you talk about non-fungible tokens, whatever they are, they're just another form of currency that we have ascribed value to. And to say they're a scam because we ascribe value to them is kind of not understanding the whole concept of currency to begin with. But you got to be careful because currency and gold and all the things that we hold as standards for monetization in this world, yes, that could collapse at any time, but we've got generations and generations of economic system kind of perpetuating them. When something's new, we don't know where that's going to be 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if you were a pharaoh in ancient Egypt accumulating gold and jumped into a time machine and brought your gold with you, that gold would still be valuable today, and it'd be probably worth a whole lot more than it was back in ancient Egypt, just 'cause. But you don't know that. You don't know that next year no one's going to care about gold. They're going to care about steel because they can make swords out of them,
Imagine though, remember that Star Trek episode where the people were woken up out of their cryogenic freezes, and the one guy had no money left because the Earth had gotten rid of that. Imagine if he still had possession of Jack Dorsey's original NFT, and he sold it to some.
Well, that was very much based on this very socialist kind of post-scarcity society where literally all currency in the Federation system had lost its value because literally everything, like I was just saying, when bread is easily available, it's cheap. Well, when it can be fabricated out of nothing because of, scientific magic, it has no value. It's completely cheap.
It's funny. This reminds me of when I read in a history book, Salt for Gold, how there was a point like in the Middle East where you could trade salt for gold. because that's how valuable salt was.
Well, that's right, because salt was why was it valuable? Not only did it make things taste good, it preserved food. Yeah. And there's nothing more precious to survival than being able to preserve food, right? But back then, you could only mine it, extract it from the seas, whatever. It was very labor intensive. But now you can get salt cheap because, we have chemical processes that make it very, very easy and very, very cheap to make. So salt is not valuable like it was.
Yeah. But, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this NFT thing, huh?
Okay.
It reminded me of crypto, isn't it? Doesn't it remind you of crypto a little bit?
This is why any investor will tell you diversify. They're not going to tell you don't invest in non-fungible tokens. They're not going to tell you not to get bitcoins or whatever. They're going to say just don't throw all your money into it, okay? Maybe have some of those, some gold, some, bonds, whatever. Diversify.
So, are there any Castlevania fans here in the in this chat tonight? Huh?
That's the one with the wall chicken, right?
It's a pork chop, but people call it wall chicken because internet, and they didn't buy.
Well, also low resolution. How can you tell? It's some sort of food in the wall, and it looks.
That's what the instruction manual said.
Yeah, but most people playing it never even looked at the instruction manual.
They didn't buy the original cartridge, unlike.
Well, that's true.
A certain old timer here who was very happy to get those old Castlevania games back in the day. But wall chicken it is, I guess. But Konami is having something a little special for Castlevania's 35th anniversary. And they're going to have a... Konami will hold NFT auctions of Castlevania art. Oh, why? People were fuming about this. Konami's going to go... If something's bad, Konami's going to be all in it. Are there NFTs of Castlevania? They are ready for the taking. You want to get in on this? I'll read you this little article. You can get in on the ground floor, Auditor Dread. Konami will hold auctions of NFT and music for Castlevania. The company opened a new Konami Memorial NFT page detailing the auctions, which is also available in English. It will hold the auctions simultaneously worldwide from January 12th to January 14th, 2022, based on North American time zones. Auction means you have to outbid the other person, correct?
Yeah, I guess.
The auction will consist of the main visual art of Castlevania Circle of the Moon and background musics and videos from the first 3 mainline games released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Only one copy of each item will be available. On the web page's Q&A segment, Konami noted that it would not sell the same NFT in the future. The company will allow resales and transfers of the NFTs to other platforms, though it will not take responsibility for such activities. In November 2021, Konami published a statement expressing its interest in the NFT market. The upcoming Castlevania NFT auctions will mark the company's official entry. Konami is not the only major Japanese company interested in NFTs. Square Enix and Sega also announced plans to enter the market. Konami also announced that the auctions will be part of celebrating Castlevania's 35th anniversary since it released the first game in September 1986. During its anniversary month in September 2021, Konami released Castlevania Advance Collection on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. It then released the soundtrack collection of the series on December 2021. Yeah, but see, those are fun. Like, the games in that Castlevania Advance Collection, you might be playing those to have fun. But you could play to earn, or you could actually just earn and own these NFTs right now. So you excited? You're going to be purchasing some NFTs for Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which is... Iga didn't even consider that a good Castlevania game. He kind of struck her from the cannon. But
I've never actually played Castlevania at all, so probably not.
It's like the Mario games.
Sure.
Where Mario goes from side to side. This is like Mario if Mario was
fighting vampires.
Was a brooding medieval knight whipping candles instead of hitting blocks and fighting Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy and things like that. I
do love how derivative these games are.
Well, back in the day, this was a bit different because you're not playing it's not cutesy. It was more serious. Jake said he beat Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Good on him. That's supposed to be a very hard game. People are obviously not too happy about this. They thought that maybe Konami could be releasing an original Castlevania game to celebrate Castlevania's 30th anniversary. But I kept forgetting that one, Konami chased all of its talent out with draconian policies, and they also decided that slot machines and pachinko machines and other gambling paraphernalia featuring their licenses would be more lucrative than actually making actual video games, and now they want to get in on the NFT market. So yay. Yes. Konami actually produce games anymore aside of pachinko machines and NFT pseudocurrency. They made a Contra game that was not well received, and they did release a Metal Gear game that was not well received because again they chased all the talent out of the company. So yeah, so if you want to take place in the Castlevania NFT auctions, you're welcome to on January 12th to 14th. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You got to spare, $5,000 lying around, or maybe $50,000. Who knows what these are going to be?
If I did, there's other things I'd want to spend it on.
All right. On the fun side of gaming side, this is a little more exciting. This has not been officially announced, but it's pretty much we think it's going to happen because trophies have been discovered. Goldeneye 007 is getting a digital release on the Xbox. Again, not officially announced. I don't know why Nintendo Life, you kind of you might be jumping the gun here yet, but it's looking like this is the case, so there's that. So let me read a bit from this article. Looks like Rare Seminole N64 shooter Goldeneye 007 is finally getting a digital re-release, but sadly not a Nintendo system. True Achievements has picked up a new achievement list for the game with 55 achievements, adding up to 1,000 gamer score. Some of the achievement images have leaked too. It does seem that this remastered version of the game, but rather the original N64 version. The history of GoldenEye as a video game is complicated. You had the one based on the Pierce Brosnan movie that came out from the Nintendo 64 and was very widely received as like the first like console first-person shooter that gave the PC games a run, gave PC first-person shooters a run for their money. People loved it. And it's never been able to get re-released since because of copyright and licensing issues because it's James Bond. So while Nintendo had the game, someone else might pick up the James Bond license, like Activision might. And so they can't, then who owns the rights to GoldenEye? Then I think Electronic Arts had the rights to James Bond, and then they made their own GoldenEye game, which wasn't really based on the movie. It was about a supervillain named GoldenEye that kills James Bond and then works for Ulrich Goldfinger and fights off against Dr. No. It was like a weird fan fiction game, okay? And then Activision remade GoldenEye later on, but did it like a movie remake and had Daniel Craig in the lead instead of Pierce Brosnan. And they actually got Daniel Craig to act in the game, and they had his image in there. So, but it's not really based on the N64 game. It's really just an adaptation of the GoldenEye movie that's also a remake because they put Daniel Craig in it and set it in modern times. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And now we think it's coming back, and I have a suspicion as to why whoever owns the original game, which I believe Microsoft owns now, I think they own the rights to the GoldenEye game because they bought Rare from Nintendo, the original production company, but they didn't have the Bond license. I think now you can get the Bond license for cheap because no one apparently wants the Bond license to make video games out of anymore, so they can now snatch it up again, hopefully, and just release GoldenEye again. So.
Well, James Bond, we were talking about, what things have value and what people are willing to spend on them, and right now it's been fairly well devalued.
Yeah, and it was devalued when Nintendo made the original GoldenEye game because it was the previous Bond had been Timothy Dalton, license kill tanked, and Bond wasn't a hot commodity, so I think Nintendo got the Bond license for very cheap, and then out comes GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan as this big hit, but Nintendo got the license to got the license to the movie really cheap compared to what they would have paid for it had they waited till after the movie came out. It's funny, the same thing happened with Mike Tyson. You remember Mike Tyson's Punch-Out?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Apparently it was just going to be Punch-Out, and then one of the Japanese producers of the game started hearing about this young boxer named Mike Tyson, and this was before he became like the big champion. But he figured this guy's an up and comer. Let's get the rights to his usage in the game. I think they paid $50,000 for it to have his name, and this was before he became champion in all these different. They made
Sure.
out big. They got to put Mike Tyson's visage on it, and they only had to pay $50,000 for it after he was a huge deal. So, where is the NFT for Pierce Brosnan Bond? I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. Can you sell NFTs of yourself?
I would imagine so.
Like if I sell someone my left index finger fingerprint, do they own my fingerprint, or do they just own an NFT of the fingerprint?
I don't know.
You don't know how this works. Okay.
I don't.
Okay, so if you own an Xbox One or an Xbox Series X, you'll be able to get your hands on Goldeneye. If you do not own one of those consoles, don't think about buying one, because not only can you not buy one of the new Xboxes, you can't seem to buy last gen's Xboxes either, as they've been unavailable due to a chip shortage.
Shocker.
See how I fed into this? Fire at Vital Tech Factory could worsen global computer chip shortage. This is turning into a miniature disaster. These things are used in everything, right? Semiconductor chips. They use them in cars.
Yep.
Yeah. A fire at a factory owned by a sole provider of a vital technology used to manufacture computer chips could exacerbate an already serious global shortage of semiconductors used in everything from phones to cars. And you know who tends to have a monopoly on these items? I think it's Apple and a few other companies.
Yep.
That's why, like, Microsoft and Nintendo have to wait in line. The blaze broke out overnight on Sunday at a plant in Berlin, Germany, owned by ASML Holding. Although far from a household name, the Dutch company is the world's largest supplier of the photolithography systems and the only source of extreme ultraviolet lithograph machines, which are more advanced. These devices are used to etch circuits onto silicon wafers and create computer chips used by Apple, IBM, and Samsung. In the third quarter of last year, ASM and Holding sold $5.2 billion worth of this equipment. The world has experienced a computer chip shortage due to the perfect storm of problems, including a global pandemic, a trade war, droughts, and snowstorms. It has coincided with a period of soaring, unprecedented demand. In January 2020 alone, chip sales reached a record 40 billion. Semiconductor factories have limited capacity, and building new plants requires massive investment and often takes several years. Although semiconductor companies are racing to increase production and governments are signing deals to bring plants to their own shores to guarantee supply, if ASML can't provide as many machines as expected, the shortage could continue for much longer.
Well, I was actually aware that we were, even before this incident, we were having some problems with chip shortage. I think you and I talked about this before, possibly behind the scenes, but I know you'd mentioned it before. But you know, the way it hit me personally was that my Wednesday night group that I play D&D with, and we've been playing online for a long time now, the Dungeon Master hasn't been able to game for a while because his computer died on him, and he's been working on getting another one, but he was told that he has to wait because of the chip shortage. So it's actually affected our tabletop D&D game, believe it or not.
This affects quote-unquote geek culture. It's affecting if you want to get into gaming, because you want to get a new PC to play the games. Well, it's semiconductor chips. You want to buy a new game console? Semiconductor chips. You can't buy, like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X have been in short supply since their launch back in fall of 2019. They've been around since 2019, but few people can get their hands on them because the people use bots to snag them up, and they just can't produce enough to meet demand. And it feels like the new console generation hasn't even started yet, but people can't even buy the old stuff now. Like, let's say I can't buy a PlayStation 5, but I'll go out and buy a PlayStation 4 to tide me over. You can't do that because they're none available. It's not just the new stuff. The old models aren't available.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. If you're not into video games, maybe now is not the time. And no D&D for you, I guess, until he gets his computer.
I know, how weird is that, right? It's the tabletop game. It's paper and dice and pencils, but we've been communicating by computer. That's the thing.
Here's the deal. This is a big problem, this semiconductor chip shortage, and they said they were expecting it to last into 2023, but if more problems are happening, this could go on forever. I don't know.
Couldn't happen at a better time either.
they say Taiwan produces a bunch of them, and especially if they run into trouble down the line.
Don't we have to say the Chinese Republic of Taiwan now? And we got to say it in Mandarin too.
Well, I'm an American. I don't know if I can officially. I'll say that. I'll apologize in Mandarin.
Right.
Okay. This is interesting. Moving on to Nicolas Cage, who is not in short supply these days.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage says actors need to know how to use a gun on movie sets. Ooh,
Thank you.
Is this a mic drop moment? Nicolas Cage. Has
I see what you did there, knowing what the next article is.
That's funny. That one literally is about him dropping the mic. But Nicolas Cage has weighed in on the aftermath of the fatal shooting on the set of Alec Baldwin's movie Rust, insisting that gun training is necessary for actors. During an appearance on the Hollywood Reporter's Actors Roundtable, Cage shared his own take, pointing out that actors are often required to train in certain areas pertaining to their characters, and gun use should be no different. I don't want to cast blame anywhere, but I do think, and I'm not talking about anybody, but people don't like the word movie star, he said. We want to be humble actors. But a movie star is a bit of a different kind of presentation, because you need to know how to ride a horse. You need to know how to fight. You're going to do fight scenes. You need to know how to ride a motorcycle. You need to use stick shift and drive sports cars. And you need to know how to use a gun. You do.
He's not wrong. I mean, a lot of people have been saying this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of people with really shitty takes, like, we shouldn't have guns on sets anymore. We got to stop doing movies that have guns in them, and, you know.
He's saying actors are the ones that need to be responsible, or people, or people handling the actors telling them they have to get trained on this stuff.
And I think he's being very nice in the way he's saying it, because he could go so far as to say, and if you don't want to do that, don't take a role that causes you to have to handle a gun.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do the work for the role that you're in and get the training you need for every aspect of it, don't do it. If you're going to play a superhero whose whole job is to be a strong guy and athletic and at peak performance, work the fuck out.
I don't know who you're talking about there.
I just mean in general, hypothetically.
Hypothetically speaking, yes. Sure. All right, but actually this other story, Keanu Reeves is trained in how to handle firearms. Yeah,
he really is. I mean, he's good.
I mean, you have to go through the training.
Somebody, I don't know if he put it out himself or somebody else did, of him doing some target shooting, and he was good.
I would think, though, yeah. I mean, well, he is convincing in those John Wick movies. Have you seen those?
Honestly, no, not yet.
They're good.
I want to. I've had a lot of people recommend it to me, and Netter keeps asking. She's like, what the heck is this movie about? Well, from what I understand, somebody kills his dog, so he goes and tracks him and hunts him down. She's like, how many friggin' dogs does this guy have? I don't know.
I'm not going to spoil it, but if you watch the movie, you'll understand why. You want to say?
Oh, shit. All it takes is kill my dog. I'll fucking hunt you down. I get that.
His wife had recently passed, I guess, from cancer or some other disease, okay? And she left a dog with him, to remember by, and a puppy, and it's like, it was to help him deal with his grief.
Well, that just adds to it, but I wouldn't even need that much, to be honest with you. I'm not saying it's an implausible story.
And it was also the way they did it. It wasn't like they did it by accident. They did it deliberately to mess with him.
Oh, sure.
And what they didn't realize is that he was actually a retired, very lethal worldwide assassin, and they made a big mistake, and it goes on from there.
He had a certain set of skills, you're saying.
Yes, but it's more like a comic book style. Like, I don't think John Wick's based on a comic book, but it felt like it could have been, because it had a very it felt like something that you would read in a comic book. And there's interesting world building and how the organization he works for works, and they even have their own currency they use, and it's interesting. Did you ever watch Deadwood, the guy that played Al Swearengen, the English actor? You know what I'm talking about?
I have seen an episode of Deadwood. I can't remember anyone from it.
Lovejoy on PBS. Remember that? back in the day.
I don't
that
think
actor's
so.
in it too.
Okay.
Like the guy that runs the hotel. It's interesting anyway. Okay, so another Nicolas Cage story here. You know what? they should put Nicolas Cage in a John Wick movie. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Like an antagonist as an antagonist or something. That would be kind of interesting. Nicolas Cage quit karaoke after someone leaked his performance of Purple Rain. It's funny, I didn't intend for this to be a Geeky Geezers story. I just thought you would find it interesting because it's related. I know you're a Prince fan, so.
I did find that. I mean, it just seems like the kind of Nicolas Cage thing. Why would Nicolas Cage get upset about this? Nicolas Cage strikes me as the kind of guy who's like, whatever, you know?
What's interesting, Nicolas Cage probably won't be seen on a carpool karaoke anytime soon. The National Treasure star, in a Hollywood Reporter Actors Roundtable interview, revealed he used to love karaoke, but he gave it up after a video of him singing Purple Rain went viral a few years ago. For me, karaoke was like therapy until someone videotaped my punk rock version of Prince's Purple Rain, and it went everywhere, and I said, I'm not going to karaoke anymore, Cage said. The video in question can be seen on YouTube under the brutal title of Nicolas Cage Ruins Prince's Purple Rain during bizarre karaoke session. When it went viral in 2019, TMZ wrote up Cage's emotional rendition of the song and speculated the performance was fueled by his desire to annul his recent marriage of 4 days. In the Hollywood Reporter's discussion, Cage opined that, quote-unquote, singing is therapy, adding karaoke is supposed to be private. It's like a prayer.
You know, he's not wrong. I mean, I totally get that. Having done a lot of karaoke, in fact, I was just talking about this, on my Friday stream. You know, Netter and I used to, and I've said this many, many times, Netter and I used to go to karaoke when we were dating, and it's kind of one of those things where you don't really believe that you're that good a singer, but you feel like you are when you get up in front of that, crowd at the pub or whatever, and they're all drunk, so everything sounds better because you've got the booze headphones on and whatnot. And everyone knows they're going to get up and suck, so they're going to encourage you because they want you to encourage them, and there's that kind of understanding. And usually the one guy that's being an asshole is, oh, you sound like shit, sit down. Everybody in the place jumps on him.
Oh yeah.
It's like, get the hell out of here. You're in the wrong place for that. And but once that stuff gets out on the internets, that's a whole different animal, and that's just shitty. It really is.
I'll say one thing I hate about modern times: the fact that everybody has a camera. Maybe we were better off before we were all able to record each other.
That's for sure.
But also Andrew Garfield, who was also took part in the roundtable discussion, did his best to convince Cage to come out of karaoke retirement for the good of the planet, telling him, "Don't steal the gift from the world. You need to keep giving." Well, that's nice.
And really, what it comes down to is, and I said this too about the karaoke. I mean, if you do care about sounding good, choose your songs based on your range. There's certain songs that I've tried to sing that I will never try to sing again. They are not in my range. I keep gravitating towards the same songs over and over again just because they are perfectly in my range and I can sing them well. Also, practice on the same songs over and over again. You get better. But ultimately, sometimes, who cares? Just get up there and have fun. I've seen people get up there and sing something, and yeah, it sounds terrible, but they're having a good time, and it's kind of hard not to have a good time with them, unless you're just an asshole.
Yep. Oh, Netter got the bot. There was a bot.
Oh, thank you, Netter. Well, if we were on long enough, we were definitely bound to get a bot.
You're somebody now.
But yeah, so if you're somebody, you got a bot. But you know what? If you ever go to karaoke, be nice to people. Don't be an asshole. Speaking of assholes, let's get to our last article of the night.
Patton Oswalt issues apology after photo with Dave Chappelle. Wow. I don't even people on the progressive side of things are starting to think, oh, this stuff is ridiculous. But again, this is where we are in the year 2022.
People, I honestly believe that in our true human nature, we respect people that have convictions. And the ones, and let's face it, that's the That's the primary reason Gina Carano has so many fans, right? Because she had convictions and she stood by them. She was willing to give up a career for it. By the same token, right, Dave Chappelle, from everything I know about him, pretty great guy, very, very funny, and great deal of misunderstanding and taking out of context what he was saying. So the shit he's getting is completely unfair. Yep. They're actually arguing the opposite of their own point when they're going against him, because he really was pro-trans, right?
Yeah.
And he was trying to make that point, and everyone that's coming out against him is just literally lying against him, you know? And someone with real conviction who had a picture with him, you know, if someone said something to him on social media, I'd say, you know what? I met Dave Chappelle. I like the guy. Took a picture with him. I consider him a friend. I respect the hell out of him. I don't know who the fuck you are. I don't respect you at all. Go to hell.
Kind of like how some of the actors on The Mandalorian did stick up for Gina Carano and said, I respect her. I don't care what people say.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, too, because at least one of the people, you know, has a really shitty take and deserved to take the same kind of crap that Gina did because of asshole stuff he's been saying on the internet. But, you know, he didn't turn his back on her, even though they clearly have differing political and philosophical opinions. So
I bring up Patton Oswalt too because he's like Mr. quote unquote geek culture, right? Like a lot of his routines are about that, right? Over the years, isn't he? Like,
I mean, I guess, but I've thought he's an asshole for a long time, so I haven't followed him at all.
Let me read a bit from this article. Okay, Hollywood comedian Patton Oswalt is apologizing after posting a photo on social media with his longtime friend and fellow comic Dave Chappelle. Chappelle has recently come under fire for his Netflix special, The Closer, which critics say is insensitive toward the transgender community. Well, from what you were saying, it sounded like...
I like the fact that they put it that way, though. That critics say is...
What does that mean? That could be, a critic is anybody, right?
Well, right. In other words, they're saying, we're not saying that, but we are citing people that have said that. And that's fair in an article like this.
Okay, so just...
It's not like they came out and said that Dave Chappelle, you know, did a routine that was offensive to.
Well, that's actually smarter on their part. It's not up to the journalists. It's just you throw the, you know...
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when all journalism was like that, but I guess, you know, we don't live in that age. So when people do that, you're like, hey, that's kind of refreshing.
Just days after creating the post, Oswalt felt the need to extinguish any fires it may have been caused on his fan base, which tends to be liberal. Again, that's another word that kind of has lost its meaning. In a lengthy apology post, Oswalt noted that he had played a show with a friend on New Year's Eve who he had not seen in a while, referring to Chappelle. We've known each other since we were teens. He's a fellow comedian, the funniest I've ever seen. I wanted to post a pic and an IG story about it, so I did, wrote Oswalt. That would have been fine, actually, if he'd left it there. But, of course, he goes on to say, but we also 100% disagree about transgender rights and representation. I support trans people's rights, anyone's rights to live safely in the world as their fullest selves. For all the things he's helped me evolve to, I'll always agree where he stands now on transgender issues. Again, I don't know if that's accurately representing where...
It's absolutely not. It's very disingenuous of what Chappelle actually did say and what he actually did mean. And I'll tell you something else. If you've been a friend of his for that long and you turn on him like this over this, you don't know what friendship is and you're an asshole.
Anyway, Oswalt continued in his post that he was sorry, truly sorry, that he didn't consider the hurt posting the picture would cause or the depth of that hurt.
I care more about what a bunch of strangers think of me than what an actual friend thinks of me.
Longtime friend, another professional comic in your circle. In his apology, but this was an interesting way it ended, and I thought this was interesting. In his apology, Oswalt also seemed to wrestle with losing friends over political disagreements. I've been carrying a lot of guilt about friends I've cut off who had views with which I couldn't agree or changed in ways I couldn't live with.
Sounds like a you problem, Patton.
This is interesting, though. Sometimes I wonder, did I and others cutting them off make them dig their heels in deeper, fuel their ignorance with a nitro boost of resentment and spite.
Maybe he's digging his heels in and fueling his own ignorance.
Maybe.
But he doesn't consider that either.
And he says,
Look, that's what friendship is. You take the greater burden on yourself. But he's one of these celebutards that can't seem to do that. He can't look at himself. He's pointing at everyone else. Everyone else is wrong. I'm right, and I'm willing to give up a lifelong friendship over this this current new religion that exists in Hollywood. Fuck him.
Listen to this last line though. I'm an LGBTQ ally. I'm a loyal friend. There's friction in those traits that I need to reconcile myself and not let cause feels of betrayal in anyone else.
With friends like him, nobody needs enemies. He is not an ally to anybody. He'll turn on you in a second as soon as the political sphere and the popular opinion turns against him.
Oswald should apologize for the lack of a backbone and for
right
putting a marginalized minority under the bus. I am going to say this though. I think the only way we're going to be getting out of this current mess, this political mess we're in, this new religion, which some other people might refer to as a cult, is for people to start having a lack of faith, a crisis of faith in their beliefs in this new woke culture. And I think maybe, just maybe, even though I have not liked how Patton Oswalt's handled himself, this could be, in that last statement, the first hint of maybe doubt. I don't know.
Well, great. When he actually gets there,
he'll get there when he decides that being a friend is more important than
he'll get there when his career is over and he's got no money coming in and he realizes that he put all of his faith in social media and hopes for fans and not in real people that really mean something.
Yeah. And what I was getting at though, I think he'll realize that it's more important maybe to be a friend to somebody than an ally. What do you think?
Good point.
All right.
Good point.
So we'll see what happens as this unfolds, but I am starting, at least on a micro level, maybe seeing a little seed of doubt. But maybe he'll proud or
and
not.
I just saw while we were on stream, I got a ping that Cameron Pasha dropped a new article on Patreon, and it's pretty much about exactly that, about the changing opinions in Hollywood about the woke culture. So it's definitely worth a read.
They overstepped, and it's making all of our lives miserable. And
I think a lot of people are starting to come to that kind of realization you were just talking about.
And, if you want your friends to see your point of view, you have to make good arguments and not yell at them and treat them like demons. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong here? Okay.
I agree. Absolutely.
So we'll see. We'll see where this carries in the future. But for now, I'm not going to quite put him on the level as a Seth Rogen, but he's almost there with this.
I would say also you have to do more listening than you do talking. That's the other problem. If he really listened to what Dave Chappelle said, he would have a very different take on all of this.
Different conclusion.
But clearly he has not. And you also need to listen with the heart of a friend and say, does he really mean what it sounds like he's saying? Listen with some grace. Listen the way a friend would.
I've known people in my own circle of friends. I had a friend that I remember this happening on Facebook, and I'm not going to go into details about what happened, but he ended up the mob got sick on him. Mm-hmm. And his good friend was leading the mob because it was politically expedient.
Oh, God.
That terrified me. And it's like, even if you think your friend did something wrong like that or expressed a bad opinion about, like maybe in this case, something that might have happened with women or something, you take him aside privately. You don't embarrass him publicly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't think the reading on the situation was correct anyway.
Not only do you not do that with friends, you don't do it with strangers. And that's what we're doing on the internet.
Yeah.
We have packs and mobs going after people on the interwebs that you don't know, All you know is that you disagree with them, and they need to lose their jobs, lose their health care, lose their lives, essentially, just because they don't agree with you. That is how we end up back in 1930s Germany.
Yep, and, well, apparently modern-day Germany ain't so good right now either, if you see what's going on over there. But
Exactly.
not that things are... This is a kind of interesting times we're living in, but hopefully they will not be interesting for much longer. But I suspect this is... We'll see what happens. I'm just rambling now. Fun stream. Thank you all for tuning in. What you got going on this week, Troy?
Well, I may or may not have a Wednesday night D&D game, so I'm not sure if I will be playing D&D or if I will be watching Die Hard 2 on...
You like Die Hard 2? Would you like to join in?
I can't commit to that because, like I said, I don't know what I got going on Wednesday.
Me with sometimes coming on an Al stream or a Netter stream.
Yeah.
There have been times I've wanted to come on, but Saturday can be a tricky night for me. But
I dig it.
I'll see if I can make it to Al's. I can't promise I can make it this Saturday for Tower Inferno, but I do.
That's fair.
Love watching people get caught on fire. Anyway, that's going to be on Big Al.
So we're going a little out of order. So Wednesday night over on Soundtracks with Birdman is Die Hard 2. I skipped over. You guys got something on Tuesday with...
Not this week. Next week we should have something, but not this week.
So Friday night, I mentioned it a couple times actually tonight. I will be doing my regular 9 o'clock Central Time Friday Last Call. Special guest Stephanie Janishek will be talking about the Book of Boba Fett and more of this culture clash that's happening on the interwebs and the socialist medias. I've done 2 videos kind of ranting about it, but Stephanie had some really good takes in some of her videos, and I thought we should do a little bit of a collab, and it'd be nice to just drink and talk. And it won't all be ranting either. We're going to talk about some really good things about the Book of Boba Fett and Star Wars in general that we've really enjoyed. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And then, well, as you were saying, Saturday, the rewatches over on Big Al Presents Towering Inferno, another Irwin Allen disaster film.
Yeah, and that's a pretty intense movie, actually, considering it's 70s, man. That's when even the family pictures were brutal. Am I wrong?
No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you know what?
Adventure was considered probably a family picture, and you got people dying. And
we talked about. Well, yeah. I mean, maybe what was shown in the theater, not so much. They did. When they back then we didn't have cable and streaming and home media. You would watch it as like the Sunday night movie. After it left the theaters, they'd bring it to television, and it was always in an edited form, mostly so they could squeeze commercials in, but they'd tone it down a little bit. But yeah, back then, hell, this was before there was PG-13, so PG films had nudity and violence and were pretty intense. And you know what? I think we're a little bit tougher for it. Now we've become much more wussified.
I blame the Disney Channel.
Yeah. No, I don't. Because the original Disney Channel, you knew what you were getting. It really was meant to be G-rated stuff, and that's fine. But now everyone being offended by everything, and we can't do this, and we can't do that, and we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that, and I don't know.
What I meant by Disney Channel is I have a suspicion that some of the younger set of millennials, that they were allowed to watch television, but that the only channel the parents gave them, the helicopter parents, as it's been known, gave them access to was the Disney Channel. So
you're probably right.
Were those tween sitcoms. I could be wrong, but it's an impression I got from like creepypasta someone was talking about. I'm like, it's always like demented Disney stuff. And it's like, did all these kids ever do is watch stuff owned by Disney growing up? I mean, when I was a kid, I was making R-rated movies all the time.
In fairness, Disney Channel because it was always viewed as so wholesome, and you have things like Mickey Mouse and stuff on it. It lends itself really well to that perversion of horror. That's why things like that Banana Splits movie, and what is that video game? The Five Nights at Freddy's is so, which is like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of thing. The idea of those wonderfully well-beloved childhood memories, the idea that there's something dark and sinister behind it is that much creepier,
Yeah. I still have to watch the Banana Splits movie.
No, you don't.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Well, on that note, thank you everyone for hanging out tonight. Hopefully we will have a stream this Wednesday. Johnson Birdman, he had an emergency with one of his pets, so
yeah,
you get that. But hopefully we'll do Die Hard 2. Exciting. Yep. So, and I think maybe I got to talk to him. Maybe Home Alone 2 needs to wait till next year, or next Christmas.
They're basically the same movie, though, aren't they?
Kind of, basically. That and Under Siege. We should do a rewatch of Under Siege instead.
There you go.
All right. Y'all have a good night, all right?
Take care, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.